Hello, this is just a guidance video for people looking at completing the Unit 5 case study for their Level 2 certificate in gym instruction. First of all, Unit 5 on your e-learning, if you scroll down you will find Unit 5, and then under Unit 5 you'll find that there's a manual and a worksheet. That worksheet needs completing and submitting accordingly, but in particular what we're looking at today is the case study. So we're focusing on these two folders. So there's a Unit 5 case study paperwork and a Unit 5 case study example, and you may also want to pay reference to this guidance and exercise list document and this guidance for session plans document, which we'll look at as well. But first of all, if you click into the Unit 5 case study paperwork, it should open a folder that looks like this. So there's these 8 documents. The first document is your guidance document, which is the same guidance document as this document here. So the 2FIG program guidance and exercise list is the same guidance document as what number 1 is in your folder. This explains that you need to write a program for an individual. It needs to include a warm-up, a cool-down, 3 types of cardiovascular equipment. So one of them can be used in your warm-up, one of them could be used in your cool-down, and one of them needs to be used in your main CV. So you can't use a treadmill for one, a treadmill for the cool down, and a treadmill for your main CV. It needs to be 3 different pieces. And you also need to use 4 resistance machines, 4 free weights, and 3 body weight exercises, which is available in the table list on the other side. So here you've got a list of exercises. So in particular you can see the resistance machine column, the free weight column, and the body weight column. You cannot use any other varieties of exercises. You've got to use the exercises listed in this table. And please also note that your program should be balanced, so you must train muscles equally. So it shouldn't just be 11 exercises on the chest or on the arms. We're expecting a full body workout, so legs, chest, back are worked equally. In addition, you should also show that your program is sequenced accordingly, so you kind of illustrate which exercises you would perform first, which would be your complex free weight compound exercises, and then your machine compound exercises, and then you can finish with any isolation exercises as well. In addition to the program, you also need to write a session plan. There's a session plan for a cardiovascular exercise, a session plan for a resistance machine, a session plan for a free weight exercise, and a session plan for a body weight exercise. And for every single session plan, you'll need to show how you adapt your exercises or your exercise choice for these specific populations. So we're also going to recap those documents and where you can find guidance for that. Finally, once you've submitted this and you've attended your assessment day, as part of your assessment you will deliver the program that you have written. However, you deliver a reduced version of it, so your tutor on the day or your assessor on the day will remove one of the CV, or will only assess you on 2, should I say, rather than 3, and they will remove one of your resistance machines, one of your free weights, and 2 of your bodyweight exercises. So rather than 11 exercises, you deliver 7. But that would be explained to you closer to your practical assessment. So that's the guidance document, and at the end of that you can find the list of exercises that are available. The second document you need to do, so whoever you're using, whoever your client is, and by client it can be anyone that you know really. It can be your partner, your brother, your sister, your mum, your dad, a friend, anyone who you can bring to your practical assessment day. So obviously go through this with them, making sure that they are okay to exercise. You should be able to tick the boxes accordingly. Can I just stress the importance of, before you fill these documents in, make sure you download them and save them somewhere local to your desktop, and then fill them in. If you fill them in online and then save, it will wipe it clean before you save it. So download them and save them first. You can then write the relevant name, just type the name for a signature, that'll be fine. And at the end of that is a health commitment statement, which is normally used in the industry to explain that if their situation changes, it is their responsibility to tell you, not your responsibility to ask them a million questions to find out if they are still healthy. So hopefully just a formal way of confirming that the person is okay to exercise. Following that, you then need to gather some information, so the client interview. So you need to gather the relevant boxes in terms of what their name is, their date of birth, tick the box whether they're male or female. When you record their height and weight, make sure you do it in the correct units. So height should be meters, weight is kilograms, and then calculate their BMI accordingly. Obviously don't miss any of those boxes or you will be dropping marks. What are your client's barriers to participation? There needs to be a barrier, otherwise you will drop a mark, and you need to get 1 mark for this question. So everybody has a barrier to exercise, whether it's time, money, motivation, family, anything like that. You need to put in what some of their barriers are, whether it's confidence, anxiety, self-esteem, cultural, religious beliefs, anything like that. But you can't just leave that there. You need to try and overcome these barriers. So you need to explain what these barriers are, whether it's to attend the gym at off-peak hours when it's not as busy. So if they are nervous, they don't have to go when it's busy. Do they need to do reduced sessions for only 30 minutes long rather than an hour long because they don't have much time? Can they join a ladies-only gym? Do they need to go with a partner? Do they need to take the gym close to work with them so they can go to the gym on the way home rather than having to go home first? So whatever their barriers are, give them a unique solution and an idea on how they can overcome that. What their incentives, so again it can be very specific to them depending on what their goals are. If they're looking to lose weight, it could be to buy new clothing once they've lost a certain amount of weight. If they're looking to get fitter, it could be to buy new trainers once they can run a certain speed or distance. It should be completely unique to them. However, make sure you don't contradict your goals, so it shouldn't be go for a night out and a curry once you've lost 10 pounds or something like that. It doesn't really promote a healthy behaviour or attitude. Which method of communication will help you motivate your client? Just explain the type of communication you might use there. So it could be things like positive, motivational, enthusiastic, maybe making it person-centered. List your client's exercise preferences. So what do they like? Try not to put just cardio. If they like cardio, explain what type of cardio. Do they like running on a treadmill, running outside? Do they like to do intervals on a rowing machine? If they like weight training, then do they like to use machines? Do they like to use free weights? What particular exercises do they like? So we're trying to gather your client's information here so we can write the most effective program that we can. And hopefully, based on some of these factors, and then by asking them, how can we help them achieve their goals, there should be some areas that they need to improve on. So we need to set them some goals. So I recommend you try and set 2 goals for every duration. So you'll have 2 short-term goals, 2 medium-term goals, and 2 long-term goals. In particular, make sure these goals are SMART. So they need to be specific and measurable. In particular, that's what people often get wrong. And there needs to be a time frame for every single goal. So it can't just be lose weight. How much weight and when by. So a long-term goal is normally something like, lose 10 pounds in 20 weeks. It's quite an achievable goal, hopefully. There's a specific and measurable target and you've put a time frame on there. Whereas your short and medium term goals could be more behaviour based. So for this person to lose 10 pounds, what do they need to do? Well, they need to go to the gym. But how many times and for how long? So we could set them a goal of go to the gym 3 times a week for the next 4 weeks. And that's quite a specific, short, measurable goal that is going to promote a healthy behaviour. It might be something around drinking more water. So could you drink 2 litres of water a day, every day, for the next week? And then do something similar for medium. Do they want to attend a class? Which class? How many times a week and for how long? Is there any other nutrition goals you could suggest to them? So try and have your long-term goals, like your adaptation goals. Like if they're going to get fitter or stronger, how are you going to measure that they are getting fitter or stronger? If they want to lose weight or gain weight, that should be in your long-term. But your short and your medium-term goals should be more behaviour-based. And if you've wrote those goals correctly, then this section should be a matter of how are you going to measure those goals. So are you going to look at their gym membership to make sure they're attending? Are you going to weigh them on a regular basis? Are you going to research which class they could attend based on their schedule and everything else? And then which source could you give them to find additional information? So the main thing here is that you're signposting them to a recommended resource. So it needs to be either an NHS resource or World Health Organization, an American College of Sports Medicine, so ACSM, and if anything like that, just make sure they're recognised. And if you can actually put a link in there, that would be great. And then at the end of it, you can see what your criteria needs to be. So you need to get at least 12 out of 15. So if you want to go back through your document, making sure that you're hitting the minimum, and ideally, aiming for full marks, then that'll be lovely. So hopefully, once you've done the PARQ and the client interview, you've got to write your program card. Obviously, the program card needs to be written according to the criteria, so make sure you're recapping that. Firstly, what sort of safety checks? So again, things like this should be in your manual, but you might be checking equipment, making sure that all the equipment's okay to use, being aware where the first aid kit is, who the first aider is. As part of that, you can actually say, where the telephone is, where the first aider is, where the first aid kit is. Any special arrangements that you might need to consider. So if it is something like, if some equipment is broken, or if it's a very busy gym, or air conditioning is broken, it might be that the person's recently just recovering from a bit of flu or cold. Anything that you need to consider there. And you're then onto your main program. So you need to write what exercise you're doing in this box, the duration, what workload or target training zone, which would be RPEs preferably, but you can also use heart rate percentages as well. And then in this box, in your teaching points, we want about 3 or 4 specific teaching points on how to perform the exercise that you've given. So we need them specific. So if it's just something like stand up tall, look forward and breathe, then they could be doing anything currently. So it should be about, if they're getting on a bike, it should be about adjusting the seat to the correct height, making sure the feet are in the straps, making sure they're sat with an upright posture and that they're not leaning or rocking, and that when they do cycle, their ankles, knees and hips stay in line. So something that's specific to that exercise. Also be something very similar for the main CV. So you're going to suggest an exercise. The duration should be at least 20 minutes, as that's what's recommended for national guidelines, at least 20 minutes of cardiovascular training. Again, intensity is RPEs and / or heart rate percentages, and again, some specific teaching points. When you then go into your program, they bunch all the exercises together. So your resistance exercises are first. So you've got 4 exercises there. Your free weight exercises are next, and then your body weight exercises are last. So in particular, if you want to show which order, you can kind of put a number 1 before the exercise, and then explain how, if that was a leg press machine, for example, that might be your first exercise, and this one could be number 7. So you might want to put the numbers in last once you've chosen all your exercise to show the sequence. Again, just explain what equipment. So if you are using a machine, you're pretty much just going to reiterate that you need a leg press. If you're using a chest press, just say chest press. The sets and reps should be specific according to your client's goals and their current level of fitness and ability. And the teaching points, again, we're looking for 3 or 4 key teaching points that are specific and unique to the exercise. It's exactly the same for the free weights. So in particular for the equipment, make sure you list what equipment you need in terms of dumbbells or benches and things like that. Again, the sets and reps should be pretty much the same, and specific teaching points. And then again, the same for the bodyweight exercises. So do you need a mat for equipment or some pull-up bars or something like that? And then finally, when you go into your cool down, you need to say what piece of equipment you're using again, the duration, what RPE, and some teaching points. And finally, once you finish your cool down, you can also look at your stretches. So you've got some boxes for your stretches here and some more boxes here. I would recommend that in the first line of boxes, you list your dynamic / mobility exercises. So what's going to get your client warm and moving. And then in the ones below, list what static exercises you're going to ask them to do after they've done their dynamic. Once you've done the warm-up stretches, you can also look at the cool-down. So predominantly looking just at static stretches again. The difference being in a warm-up, there might be about 10 seconds, whereas in a cool-down, there might be for more 20 seconds. And again, list the exercises with the time frames. However, please note you do need to show a diagram for these stretches, and to import images onto a PDF is quite difficult. So we do suggest you use something like a Word document like this, where you can still write your exercise or your stretches in these boxes, but in addition to that, you submit a Word document where you put in however many dynamics that you're doing here, however many statics, and however many stretches, but it should be a kind of a full body approach in terms of the number and the type of stretches performing. So hopefully that'll be then your program card with your stretches, and that is what you'll then deliver as part of your assessment. But in addition to that, you need to do your 4 session plans, and the session plans are very similar. So this is your CV session plan, this is your body weight session plan, this is your free weight session plan, and that's your resistance. So for every single one, you need to say what timings or intensities. So for the CV, you might want to put 20 minutes, and then explain what RPE you're going to ask your client to work at. I want you to list as many muscle groups that you think this exercise works. So if you're doing a treadmill, that can be a lot of muscles, so show your knowledge and understanding of which muscles it's working. Here, explain your teaching points, and rather than giving 3 or 4 teaching points, try and give a step-by-step, blow-by-blow account of how to perform this exercise. In addition though, we want you to list 3 alternatives. So when you're listing your alternatives, think of them as a progression, a regression, so something that's easier potentially, something that's harder. Sorry, a progression will be harder, a regression will be easier, or maybe just a like for like. If the gym's busy and they can't get on it, can you suggest an alternative for them there? And then finally, you need to explain how you will adapt this exercise according to these specific populations. Now, you do need to be careful here because you don't want to stereotype. It's not to say that every 14 to 16-year-old is the same and therefore you will treat them the same. Likewise, every elderly person isn't the same, so you wouldn't treat them the same. However, they want you to show an understanding of what common problems or issues certain populations may have. So, in particular, there's a document there which we'll refer to briefly that will give you guidance on what should go in there. But in particular, for your pre- and postnatal population, on every single session plan, which is laid out the same, you need to say which trimester you are referring to, as a lady in trimester 1 will have different issues to somebody in trimester 3. In particular, obviously, there's the bump. The bump is going to be a lot bigger in trimester 3 than it will be in trimester 1. Equally, her energy levels could be completely different. The amount of weight she's having to carry will become different. So therefore, the adaptations that you suggest would be different depending on which trimester. So make sure you detail what trimester your client is in. In addition, you need to say what disability your client has because there's a broad range of disabilities. So we will give you some specific guidance, and in particular, we ask you to cover somebody who may be hearing impaired, somebody who may be sight impaired, somebody who may be required to use a wheelchair, as well as somebody who may be recovering from a heart attack. So there's 4 specific populations there that you might want to use, and therefore you can give a specific adaptation choice for each disability, and it just gives a justification of why you are suggesting that adaptation. And they are all your documents that you will need to complete for your case study prior to your practical assessment. If we go back to the e-learning, there is a Unit 5 case study example folder. So once that folder is open, there's 3 documents in there. One, there is a CV session plan. So this is just an example of what we would expect for all 4 session plans. So you can see the timing that we're given there. We've used skipping as an example. You can't use skipping. You've got to use a gym-based exercise. So obviously we've done that, so you can't copy it. You need to give some specific teaching points, so you can see the detail there. Some alternatives, so we've listed 3 alternatives, and then some recommendations on why we've suggested what we've suggested. Now the only thing here, on hindsight, is we haven't said what trimester this pre- and postnatal client is, so make sure in here in particular, if we're talking about excess weight that has been gained, I would suggest that this is looking at trimester 2 or trimester 3. So make sure you actually put what trimester you are referring to. There's also an example document for your program card. So you can see the detail in there. We've just given you 1 exercise, so you can't completely copy that. And then, like I said, we've already given you the stretches document. So going back to your e-learning, that's your case study paperwork with some examples. This guidance and exercise list is also in your case study folder as well. but there is this document here, so 2FIG Unit 5 guidance for session plans, and this is where there's just a bit of information about what to consider. So for your CV session plan, we would request that you use a treadmill, and for the disability, can you use somebody who is wheelchair bound? For the body weight session plan, can you use the exercise lunge? And for the disability, could you use somebody who has got a hearing impairment? For the free weight session plan, can you use a squat? And can you use somebody who's got sight impairment? And for the machine, can you use a leg press? And could you use somebody who's recovering from a heart attack? And explain to us what adaptations you'd suggest and why. There is then a bit more guidance on how to support 14 to 16 year olds, how to support the elderly, and some considerations you might need to make around pre and postnatal clients. Hopefully from that and your manuals, you should be able to suggest some sensible alternatives and adaptations for those populations. Once you've completed those documents, please submit them all together. We can't really mark your case study if it's one at a time. We need to see all those documents together, and your tutor will mark them and give you some feedback. Okay, thank you very much.